Hey everyone, welcome back. The topic for today is the 5 craziest deals that I've ever gotten as a vinyl collector. So each of these are jazz. They're original pressings. They're mix of things that I found in store as well as online. Personally, I think that the in-store ones are not only more sort of thrilling because as soon as you see the record, you sort of confirm that it's an original pressing and that it's worth something, whereas the online ones, sometimes you're like crossing your fingers hoping that the person's going to ship it. They're not going to find out that it's worth something and then cancel the auction, or one of them was on Discogs, and so it's like I had no idea what I was getting until it showed up, really. So the in-store ones are probably maybe a little bit more interesting to hear about, but I do have, I think, 2 of these I bought online, so I'm going to cover those as well. So a little bit of a companion to my video from last week where I talked about the top 10 most valuable records in my collection. These are all different records, but again, craziest deals, so sort of the widest gap between purchase price and perhaps value. All right, so the first one up, I'm actually going to get the online ones, I think, out of the way first, and we can spend maybe a little bit more time on some of the in-store ones because there's a little bit more story, I think. Anyway, this first one, Hank Mobley's Roll Call. This is a title that probably anybody who's interested in jazz music probably is aware of. Obviously a classic record. I found this on Discogs. So on Discogs, you don't get photos of the actual item that you're purchasing, right? And so it's up to you to actually reach out to sellers and ask them for pictures so you can sort of verify what you're getting. I'm actually the sort of person that never does that, by the way. I don't think that I've asked for photos of a record in several years on Discogs, and I buy a lot on Discogs. And here's the thing: the reason why is because I've said in previous videos, right? I'm always looking for good deals, and there's something in my head that's like, wait, if I don't jump now, if I'm the person that's hard to deal with and I'm asking for photos and doing all that back and forth, somebody's going to come in and swoop in and grab the record out from under me. And so I more often than not, almost always, just buy. Like I don't ask for pictures, I don't communicate with the seller. I just go ahead. And so anyway, this was one such example where I didn't have any photos. I don't even remember what the description was in terms of the condition. I think it was nice, but the key here was that this record was listed as a reissue. So it was under like a different listing for Hank Mobley's Roll Call. I want to say it might have been like a 3rd pressing or a 4th pressing, something like that. But what tipped me off was they mentioned a deep groove. There's only one edition of this record, I believe, that can have the deep groove, and that is the original. There might be, I'm trying to think if there's like a New York, USA pressing that would have the deep groove in it. But in any event, it was a deep groove on like a 4th, they were saying it was a 4th pressing. There's no way. It had to be an earlier one. Plus, they had it listed for $50. So they knew they had something, but they were off in terms of which pressing it was. I paid the $50. This thing arrived, and not only was it original, so the 47 West label with the deep groove, but I mean the condition. I mean, you can see the condition of this cover, but the condition of the vinyl matches, like, just looks unplayed. And so for $50, it was a heck of a deal. This was a couple of years ago. But anyway, that's the first one and the only one we're going to talk about that was a Discogs purchase. All right, so this next one was actually on eBay, and that is Horace Parlan's Us 3. So just maybe a word about this title. I mean, probably the rarest album in the Blue Note 4000 series, maybe alongside like True Blue by Tina Brooks, right? Those are probably the 2 that are the most difficult to find, perhaps most sought after. Maybe not the best music, at least in this case. I don't think that this is like even a top 5 or maybe even a top 10 in terms of music, but it's just one of those rare titles for whatever reason. Not many reissues of this thing, and just difficult to find. So when I saw this on eBay, it was listed as a Music Matters reissue. There was only a single picture, and it was just the front of the cover. And yeah, Music Matters reissue with a buy it now price of $40. So when I saw this record listed, there was just something about that one picture that made me think, I don't think it's a Music Matters reissue. And here's the thing: for $40 at that time, that's probably what a Music Matters reissue would go for. Probably about they probably looked it up, and that was the market price. I think today, these days, it's probably like $150 or something. But anyway, at the time, it wasn't really a gamble because I probably would have been happy with the Music Matters reissue for $40. But I was anticipating that this could actually be an original. And I think it was because the cover didn't quite have that sort of heavy, glossy sheen that so many of the Music Matters reissues do. It didn't look like to me that this was the 45 RPM gatefold. And so, yeah, I mean, I just kind of, took a chance when I saw it. And when this thing arrived, I couldn't even believe it because, I mean, even since then, and this is some years ago, I've never had an opportunity to own another one of these. Mixture of like lack of availability as well as just prohibitively expensive, right? So anyway, yeah, this is certainly the best deal I've ever gotten on eBay, hands down. I don't think it's even close. All right, so those were the two that were online, and those are actually the only Blue Notes that I'm going to cover. So this next one, this was actually on my honeymoon. So I was in Hawaii. In late 2019, we were on, where were we? We flew into Honolulu, and we ended up going out to Kauai for a week. But anyway, while we were in Honolulu for like just a day, I ended up stopping into a couple of record stores, and I didn't get much. Like I remember I got a few things, but after dinner one night, we were just like kind of walking around some of the shopping district area, and there was a store that was selling like ukuleles and other kind of kitschy Hawaiian stuff. Some of it seemed like it was nice, but some of it just seemed like it was just sort of touristy, sort of tchotchkes kind of place. But anyway, they had what caught my eye and why I even went in was not that it was a ukulele store, but they actually had vinyl like on the wall. And it was just covers, right? It was like Elvis covers of Hawaii themed music that he put out. But funnily enough, they had a small box of old records. And I was like, here's the thing. This is not a record store. It wasn't even a vintage store. And it was in Hawaii where like tourists are going in and out all the time. And so I didn't expect to find much, but I'm flipping through the records, and there's actually two. I'm only going to cover one, but I found them both together. One was Booker Irvine's title for Savoy. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was the tenor, or was it the tenor stylings of Bill? I'm trying to think. Anyway, it was something like that. It was either a Bill Barron or it was a Booker Irvine. But anyway, the other one that I did want to reference was Mal Waldron's The Quest. So out of all of these like junky records, they had two great jazz records, and all of them were $6 a piece. So I spent $6 on this guy. It's in reasonably good shape, both for the cover and the vinyl. And I was just shocked because how would you couldn't even imagine finding like a Mal Waldron record at just some random touristy Hawaiian store. But anyway, obviously I had to take it with me, and it was a little bit of a challenge in terms of carting it around Kauai. But obviously it had to make the trip with me, and it survived unscathed on the flight home as well. All right, this next one I actually alluded to in my top 10 video because I ended up covering sort of the another of this guy's albums in that video. But anyway, this is Weldon Irvine's Liberated Brother. So this record I found locally in Atlanta at a store, and I mentioned this again in the other video. They had this and the other one for $25 a piece. And it was just in the stacks. It wasn't even like in the new, new vinyl that they had just gotten in kind of section, which made me think like, did the store just immediately put it, file it away in the stacks, or had it been sitting there for a while and like nobody paid attention? And maybe you see the $25 price tag and you just automatically think, oh, I'm sure that's some sort of reissue. Although I would argue that anybody who's interested in Weldon Irvine, and even if you found a reissue for $25, you probably want to take a close look at it. So I don't know the circumstance, but they had $25 on this guy. I picked up both of them, and I just like I said, I couldn't believe it. I mean, there's such a this is one of those where like the gap between the purchase price and probably what it's worth is quite wide, and it's great music. So, you know, I never thought that I'd be able to afford probably any of Weldon Irvine's stuff. And I was able to knock two out at once for $25 a piece. So crazy, crazy deal. All right, this is the last one that I want to cover in this video. Maybe at some point I'll do a sort of a follow-up and show you some more. This is my favorite though, out of these five. Not in terms of like, you know, just like the music necessarily, but just in terms of like the situation. Okay, so I was living in Austin, Texas. This was probably 2014, 2015 or so. And I had heard about a record store out in a place called Lano, Texas, L-L-A-N-O, Texas. Pretty rural town. It's about an hour and a half away from Austin, towards the west. So it's, you know, it's not in the direction of Dallas or Houston or San Antonio. It's like, I don't think anybody goes out there. But anyway, the store is called Crazy Wax. It's kind of confusing because I've heard it called Crazy Wax, but then if you go on the website, they also kind of made it seem like it was called Rat Records, and I couldn't figure out which it was. But anyway, it was the same store. It's owned by a guy. I don't know if he still owns it. I don't know if the record store is still open, but he had owned a record store in Dallas, and he retired. This is the story, I believe. I'm trying to remember what he told me when I spoke with him, but I believe he owned a record store at some point in Dallas. He closed it down, he retired, and he was living in Lano. He opened this store up inside a meat processing facility, or essentially like a slaughterhouse. So if you went inside, you would still see sort of insulation on the walls, meat hooks hanging from the ceiling. It was a pretty cavernous place. It wasn't set up that well in terms of like a retail establishment. But all that being said, this guy had to have had hundreds of thousands of records. No joke. I mean, just an insane amount of records in this shop, and they were meticulously organized. So you would go into like a room, or I think really like two rooms that were the jazz stuff, and floor to ceiling in like metal racks were white boxes that each had alphabetical, you know, sort of organization on the outside. So it would be like A through like BN or something like that, or like not BN but like BA or something like that that kind of said, all right, this is where it ends, and then the next box sort of picks up the rest, picks up from there. But I don't even remember how many boxes of jazz there were, but there were, I mean, more than 50 of them, maybe more than 100. Again, this is some years ago. But I went back to this store maybe 3 or 4 times. This particular time was the second time I ever went inside the shop. And the process for for purchasing anything was a little strange as well. So you'd spend probably hours. I mean, I would spend like a half a day inside the store because it just took so long to go through everything. Even though it was so organized, I felt like I needed to go through everything because I would every time I'd start to get bored, I'd find some other record in there that really excited me. And so I was like, all right, I just have to keep going. So anyway, how the process works to purchase is that you gather your records that you've found and you go up to the owner and you hand them to him, and he kind of just looks at the records and he looks at you and he just comes up with a price out of nowhere. And so I never had any idea what I was going to get into, right? Because I'd grab a record that I thought was worth $10 and I'd take it up to him and he'd say, oh, 25. And I'd be like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to go put this back in the cavernous record store. It was just, I don't know, it didn't make sense, but he didn't have anything priced. And it was all just what he thought he wanted to charge you. And I don't want to paint him as this terrible person or whatever. He actually ended up being very nice. I ended up going over to his house, I think once, and looked at this collection that he had recently purchased that he hadn't brought into the store yet. So he was a very nice guy. I got just a ton of records for this guy over the years that I was living in Austin. And so, certainly no complaints. But before I established that relationship, I went into a store one day, and the record that I found was Walter Bishop's Speak Low. So take a good look at this cover because you'll see that there's some obvious signs of water damage on this thing. But for anybody who's familiar with this record, you know that it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter the condition. It obviously matters the condition in terms of value. But if you have the opportunity to buy this record, you have to buy this record because it is, it's got to be one of the rarest. I'm trying to think if it's the rarest record in my entire collection. And that's like very like, I don't want to say it's subjective, but like how would I have any idea what's the most rare? Because I have no idea about pressing quantity. But in terms of the number of times I've seen this record come up for sale, or certainly the number of times that I've had the opportunity to buy a copy, which has been never, except for this time, this is probably one of the most rare records in my entire collection. So anyway, I had this record. I had like 6 or 7 others. And oh, and by the way, this was early enough in my collecting that I actually didn't know the value of this. I knew it looked familiar to me. I knew who Walter Bishop was, but I had no idea like what the Jazz Time label was. I didn't know how many releases they had. I certainly didn't know that this record goes for thousands of dollars, or has in the past. And also there was no internet because I was in Plano, Texas. Like there's no reception. So I couldn't even check online to like verify that this was an original pressing because I didn't have that knowledge at this time. Like I'd only been collecting for like 2 years. So came upon this record, I had like 5 others. I put this one in the middle because I was pretty sure that this was like the more desirable one. And I don't remember the other records that I had with it because it almost like didn't matter. Like I probably could have just taken a random handful from the shelves just to like try to hide this in there type of thing to make him think that I wasn't like after this one in particular. So anyway, he looks through the records, and I do remember the price that he gave me on this. It was $8. And he probably was doing that based on the condition of the cover, but actually the vinyl is in really nice shape. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it. And every time that I pull this out to spin it, I'm, reminded of a story in the situation of actually finding this in a shop. And, and like that type of experience obviously is going to be a little bit more rewarding than, again, the, kind of buying some of these online and getting great deals. But I mean, here's the thing, like if you're a vinyl collector, as I am, like this is the thrill that you live for every single time that you go out to a record store. You don't know what you're going to find, or even like, flipping through eBay or whatever and you find a deal. So it's like, this is, I don't know, it's the thrill of the hunt, I suppose, and what kind of keeps us all in the game, because every single time that I feel like, oh, I haven't found like a really good deal in a while, and it kind of like bums you out because prices are going up and up, and then all of a sudden like something will pop up and you're like, oh man, like I can't believe I got that. I can't believe I found that record. So anyway, this was one such example of that, but obviously very early in my collecting, and couldn't be more happy to own a copy of Speak Low. So that is number 5, and actually the only ones I wanted to cover today. So relatively short video, but we're in December, coming up to the end of the year, and I've got some sort of best of lists and sort of reminiscing or of collecting over the course of 2022. So please look out for those videos. Thanks for your attention. Please go ahead and hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.